You fear being forgotten. You think obscurity is death. Yet in truth, it is your sharpest weapon. For what cannot be seen cannot be controlled, and what is invisible cannot be destroyed. In this lesson, I will show you why disappearing from the minds of others grants you more power than their constant attention ever could. Men waste their strength begging for remembrance, clawing at the fragile walls of history to leave a mark. But the wise do not fight to be remembered. They choose when to vanish and when to reappear. Like the shadow behind the candle, they dictate fear, curiosity, and reverence not through presence, but through absence. Understand this. To be forgotten is not weakness. It is the freedom to move unseen, to strike without warning, and to endure when others are crushed beneath their own reputation. Let us now dissect this art, so that you may master it before it masters you. Men crave attention as if it were air. They seek to be seen, heard, admired, believing that visibility alone secures their power. Yet I tell you, visibility is not a blessing. It is a burden. The more eyes that gaze upon you, the more hands prepare to strike against you. Consider the kings who sat upon gilded thrones. Their crowns sparkled under torchlight, yet those jewels did not protect them. They made them targets. Every rival dreamed of wearing that crown. Every ally secretly measured its weight. Do you not see? To stand always in sight is to stand always in danger. Ask yourself when you enter a room, do you hunger for recognition? Do you stretch your presence, force your name into the mouths of others? Then understand. You are also stretching your weaknesses across the walls, painting a map for your enemies. The visible man cannot hide his flaws. He cannot mask his missteps. Every smile, every gesture, every word becomes evidence. And men, being creatures of envy, will not admire you for long. They will watch only to find the moment you stumble. Think of Julius Caesar. His genius was undeniable, yet his constant presence, his endless pursuit of glory, filled the Senate with fear. They saw him every day, and with each day, their resentment grew sharper. His visibility was his undoing. His enemies did not have to invent a weakness. They simply watched him until his ambition revealed itself. The blade that pierced him was sharpened not by his silence, but by his constant appearance in Rome's light. And is it not the same in your own life? The colleague who boasts daily at work invites quiet scorn. The friend who flaunts every triumph awakens resentment. The influencer who drowns the world in their image creates a following of admirers who secretly hope for their collapse. Visibility makes you fragile because it multiplies your enemies while exhausting your defenses. Now, reflect. Do you truly need constant recognition, or is it a drug that weakens you, drawing you into dependency? The wise man measures his appearances. He speaks less, but when he speaks, men listen. He steps into the light only when the timing favors him, then disappears before envy can gather strength. Psychology confirms what princes have always known. The more familiar a face becomes, the less power it holds. Attention dulls mystery. Repetition breeds contempt. To be too visible is to invite boredom, and boredom quickly becomes disdain. A man once admired becomes a man too ordinary to be feared. Do not mistake me. Do not say you must vanish entirely. Power thrives on balance. Too much invisibility and you are forgotten. Too much visibility and you are destroyed. The art lies in calculating when to reveal yourself and when to retreat. Picture a general in war. If he displays all his troops at once, the enemy knows his strength. But if he conceals part of his army, holding them in shadow, he forces the enemy into doubt. They hesitate. They miscalculate. They destroy themselves on illusions. So too must you master your presence. Show only enough to inspire fear or respect. Conceal the rest. Do you notice how predators in nature behave? The serpent does not hiss without cause. The hawk does not shadow the ground unless the kill is near. They understand what men forget, that to be seen without necessity is to waste energy and reveal intent. And here lies the cruel paradox. The world will tempt you with the illusion that fame is power. It will whisper that to be constantly visible is to be significant. Yet those who burn brightest often burn shortest. The flame admired from every angle consumes itself faster than the steady ember hidden in the hearth. History remembers countless rulers who sought constant attention. Nero, parading through Rome as if his songs could shield him from conspiracy. Napoleon, intoxicated by the eyes of Europe until his own glory blinded him to reality. They mistook visibility for strength. They mistook attention for loyalty. And so, they collapsed beneath the weight of their own image. The burden of visibility is this: once you are seen, you cannot be unseen. Once you are measured, you cannot be immeasurable again. You lose the advantage of mystery, the weapon of unpredictability. So I ask you, would you rather be the man everyone sees, or the shadow that no one can grasp? The celebrated is envied, the envied is hated, and the hated is soon betrayed. But the unseen, he endures. Hold this truth in your mind: what the eyes cannot constantly observe, they cannot destroy. And yet, what happens when you take absence itself and wield it as a deliberate weapon? That, my listener, is the art of turning invisibility into dominance. Silence unsettles men more than words. Absence disturbs them more than presence. When you withhold yourself, you force others into the prison of their imagination. And their imagination, left unchecked, is far more dangerous than anything you could openly declare. Have you not noticed this in your own life? When someone disappears from the room, from the conversation, from the stage, they do not vanish from thought. They grow larger within it. Questions multiply, speculation festers, silence creates a void, and men rush to fill it with their fears and suspicions. Consider the prince who rules by silence. His court whispers, guessing at his intentions. They tread carefully, fearing what might displease him. He does not need to threaten them. He does not need to explain. His absence from their chatter becomes more commanding than his constant voice. In politics, absence is a sharper blade than speech. When a ruler speaks often, his words lose force. When he speaks rarely, each word falls like a decree from the heavens. Silence amplifies. Absence magnifies. History provides endless proof. Take the example of the Venetian doges, cloaked not only in robes but in mystery. Their words were measured, their presence limited. This cultivated an aura of inevitability, as though their silence was a mirror of divine authority. Compare this to rulers who spoke endlessly, who defended themselves at every rumor. They wasted power by responding. The wise do not answer every voice. They allow silence to breed reverence. Even in battle, generals who vanish from sight instill dread. An army that disappears into the hills seems more terrifying than one plainly arrayed in the field. Soldiers imagine ambushes where none exist. Fear swells not from what is seen, but from what is unseen. Do you grasp the psychology here? The human mind cannot bear uncertainty. It must invent explanations. If you speak too much, you define yourself. But if you withdraw, others define you in ways far more advantageous, often exaggerating your power, your cunning, your reach. Reflect on personal dealings. The lover who suddenly grows silent becomes irresistible. Their absence gnaws at the mind of the other, stirring insecurity and longing. The rival who withdraws from debate appears more disciplined, more formidable than the one who argues every point. Presence satisfies curiosity. Absence sharpens it. Ask yourself, when was the last time you allowed your silence to do the speaking? When did you last retreat from the stage and let others torture themselves with questions about you? Most men fear this strategy. They cannot endure being misunderstood, overlooked, or speculated about, and so they rush to explain, to correct, to defend. But defense is weakness. To explain is to expose. To remain silent is to hold power. Silence is not emptiness. It is pressure. It is a weight that suffocates others. Absence is not weakness. It is misdirection. It forces your enemies to fight ghosts, to waste their strength chasing shadows. There is a reason prophets often retreated into deserts, caves, or mountains. Their absence made their return more powerful. When they remerged, they carried not just words but an aura born of silence. Men believed they had communed with the divine, when in truth, they had only mastered the art of withdrawal. Think of it as a stage. The actor who never exits becomes ordinary, but the actor who leaves the stage and returns commands fresh attention. So it is with power. To be present always is to risk being ignored. To be absent at times is to make your presence sacred. Yet beware, absence must be chosen, not forced. If you vanish without control, you are forgotten. If you disappear deliberately, you are remembered. The art is to step back not in weakness, but in calculation. Leave the feast before you are dismissed. Exit the conversation before your words grow dull. Retreat while their eyes still seek you. The silence you cultivate must never be empty. It must be charged with intention. When you do not speak, let others wonder what you know. When you do not appear, let them fear where you might be. Absence is not passive. It is a weapon, honed by patience, sharpened by restraint. It gives you the advantage of time, the luxury of choice, while your enemies exhaust themselves in speculation. So I ask you, are you willing to let others sit in the torment of not knowing? Or will you always rush forward, revealing your hand, surrendering your edge? Remember this: a presence can be ignored, but an absence haunts. And yet silence is only the beginning. What if you could use absence not merely to disturb minds, but to shatter entire legacies? That is where the art of obscurity becomes the deadliest weapon of all. Legacy is the sweetest poison. Men drink it eagerly, believing it will make them immortal. They chase remembrance, monuments, titles, songs, anything that promises to resist the erosion of time. Yet in truth, legacy enslaves more than it frees. Ask yourself, why do men exhaust their lives in pursuit of glory? Why do rulers wage wars not for necessity, but for reputation? Why do scholars write endlessly? Not for knowledge, but to inscribe their names upon eternity. The answer is simple. Men cannot accept the silence of death. They imagine that legacy will grant them permanence. But permanence is an illusion. Look to history. How many rulers have you forgotten? How many generals, once feared, now lie buried beneath dust and indifference? The world remembers only fragments. It selects a few names, often distorted, often twisted, and casts the rest into shadow. And here lies the trap. To live for legacy is to hand your life over to forces beyond your control. You become a prisoner to reputation, to the fickle mouths of men, to the pens of chroniclers who may despise you. Your power is no longer yours. It belongs to the storytellers who outlive you. Consider Alexander. He conquered half the known world, burned cities, raised monuments. And yet the image we hold of him is not his own design. It was shaped by scribes, sculptors, and later historians. His true self was buried long ago. What remains is a mask worn by countless generations, each interpreting him for their own purpose. He sought immortality. He achieved only distortion. His legacy does not belong to him. It belongs to those who wield his memory. Have you thought of this in your own life? The more you cling to how you will be remembered, the more you enslave yourself to the judgment of others. You begin to shape your actions not for strength in the present, but for appearances in the future. And appearances are fragile. A single rumor, a single scandal, a single enemy can taint a lifetime of effort. The obsession with legacy is a weakness. It binds you to illusions. It prevents you from making cold, necessary choices. A ruler who fears how posterity will judge him may hesitate to act with cruelty when cruelty is required. A leader who seeks eternal praise may avoid betrayal even when betrayal secures survival. In this way, legacy turns strength into hesitation. Do you see the trap? Legacy promises immortality but delivers paralysis. It whispers that history will reward you, but history is written by your enemies as often as by your allies. Psychology reveals the same truth. When a man attaches his identity to how he will be remembered, he becomes dependent on external validation. His sense of self rests not in his own will, but in the shifting perception of others. He becomes fragile. He becomes manipulable. For anyone who can threaten his legacy can control his actions. Reflect on the modern world. Men ruin themselves for reputation. Politicians conceal their failures not for survival, but to protect their place in history. Artists dilute their work to maintain popularity. Even ordinary men censor their lives for fear of how family, community, or society will remember them. They live not for themselves, but for shadows. What is wiser then? To chase remembrance, or to embrace obscurity, and with it freedom. The forgotten man is unchained. He does not live for monuments that crumble or for words that twist with time. He lives for power in the present. His decisions are sharp, unclouded by illusions of eternity. He bends his will to survival, to dominance, to reality, not to ghosts of future judgment. Think of the strategist who fights not to be remembered, but simply to endure. He may never have statues, but he outlives those who do. He may never be praised in books, but he escapes the corruption of reputation. In obscurity, he finds the true permanence, the ability to continue when others, trapped by their desire for legacy, fall. So I ask you, what is more valuable? A name carved in stone destined to erode, or power exercised fully in your lifetime where it cannot be denied? Do not misunderstand me. Legacy can be used as a tool. It can frighten, inspire, manipulate. But to live for it, to devote yourself to it, that is folly. Better to wield legacy than to worship it. Better to treat it as a mask you can put on and take off, rather than as a prison from which you cannot escape. Legacy is a snare set by time, baited with pride, waiting for the ambitious. Avoid the trap. Walk past it. Seek not eternity in memory, but dominance in the present. For the forgotten can act without fear, while the remembered are bound by their own shadow. And yet there is a darker question. If legacy enslaves the ambitious, can obscurity itself be turned into a weapon? Can forgetting become not merely a shield, but a sword? To disappear is not always weakness. Sometimes it is strategy. When you step into obscurity, you do not lose power, you gather it. For what is unseen cannot be measured, and what cannot be measured cannot be opposed. Have you ever noticed how the most dangerous men are those you cannot quite place? The ones who sit quietly, revealing little, allowing others to underestimate them. These are the players who strike hardest. Because while others waste themselves in visibility, the obscure man watches, calculates, and prepares. Obscurity is not the absence of power. It is the concealment of it. Imagine the general who hides part of his army beyond the hills. His enemy, unable to count the full strength, hesitates. Fear magnifies the unknown. The army unseen is always larger than the one displayed. History proves this. Consider Timur, the conqueror from Central Asia. He spread rumors of forces greater than he possessed. He cloaked his true numbers in secrecy, let whispers inflate his legend. Cities surrendered before battle even began, undone not by swords, but by the shadow of an invisible threat. That is obscurity weaponized, power multiplied by mystery. Now turn your gaze inward. In daily life, are you too visible? Do you lay your thoughts bare, your intentions exposed, your ambitions declared? If so, you are easy prey. The manipulator thrives on predictability. He reads your patterns, exploits your openness. But if you embrace obscurity, you deny him this. You force him into speculation, into hesitation. And hesitation is the death of action. Psychology reveals the same truth. The human mind abhors uncertainty. When deprived of information, it invents explanations often darker than reality. If you withdraw from constant explanation, others will create myths about you. They will overestimate your strength, your knowledge, your reach. Their imagination becomes your servant. Think of the rival who suddenly vanishes from the battlefield of words. He does not argue. He does not protest. He retreats into silence. What happens? His opponent begins to wonder. What is he planning? What does he know? Every hour of silence grows heavier, until doubt corrodes certainty. A single absence can achieve what 1,000 words cannot. Ask yourself, is it better to be feared for what you are, or for what you might be? Presence reveals limits, obscurity erases them. In politics, the master strategist never reveals his full hand. He withholds. He misdirects. He allows others to see fragments, never the whole. This forces rivals into error. They prepare for battles that do not exist, defend against threats that were never there. He wastes none of his strength while they exhaust theirs fighting phantoms. Even in personal relationships, obscurity holds power. The man who explains every feeling, every thought, makes himself ordinary, predictable. But the one who withholds, who chooses silence, gains an aura of depth. His absence speaks louder than the chatter of others. He becomes a mirror in which people project their own desires and fears. This is the essence of weaponized obscurity. You do not need to act constantly. You do not need to expose yourself. By retreating into shadow, you force others to reveal themselves instead. Their words, their guesses, their mistakes, all of it is information, and you remain hidden, untouched, waiting for the precise moment to strike. But take heed, obscurity is not idleness. It must be deliberate. To vanish without control is to disappear into irrelevance. To vanish with intent is to create power. You must know when to step back, when to let curiosity and suspicion gnaw at others, and when to remerge with sudden force. Picture a serpent in tall grass, silent, invisible. The prey walks carelessly, unaware of the danger inches away. Then, in a single strike, the serpent claims victory. The silence, the concealment, the patience, all were weapons sharper than teeth. So it must be with you. Learn to fade into the background. Learn to let others underestimate you. Let them forget you for a time so that your return is not only unexpected, but devastating. Remember this, the unseen player shapes the game more than the visible one. For visibility invites defense, but obscurity invites error, and the errors of others are the richest source of power. Now reflect. If obscurity can protect you, and if it can be used to make others destroy themselves, what happens when you take this further? What if obscurity not only shields you, but ensures that others never replace you, never escape you, never erase you? That, my listener, leads us to the deeper illusion. Why men cling to the idea of being irreplaceable, and why it is a fatal lie. Men cling to the fantasy that they are unique. They believe the world cannot replace them. They convince themselves that without their presence, their skill, their brilliance, everything would collapse. But this is a lie, a comforting lie, and one that has destroyed kings, generals, and ordinary men alike. Ask yourself, do you secretly believe you are irreplaceable? Do you imagine that your absence would be noticed, mourned, perhaps even catastrophic? If so, you are already weak. For the moment you believe this illusion, you hand your power to others. You depend on their recognition to confirm your worth. Look at history. Consider the emperors of Rome. Each thought himself eternal, necessary, the spine of the empire. Yet when they fell, whether by dagger, disease, or disgrace, the empire did not vanish. Another filled the throne. Another wore the crown. The empire continued, as empires always do. What then became of their irreplaceability? It was smoke, blown away in a single night. Even Julius Caesar, murdered by those closest to him, believed Rome could not do without him. And yet Rome survived. It twisted, it bled, but it endured. His death proved what rulers fear to admit, that no man is indispensable. The machine of power simply grinds forward, consuming one operator after another. And is this not true in your own life? The worker who thinks his company cannot function without him is soon proven wrong when replaced within a week. The lover who imagines themselves unforgettable discovers how quickly another takes their place. The leader who believes his followers owe him eternal loyalty is abandoned when a rival offers more. Irreplaceability is a myth men create to soothe their insecurity. It tells them they matter more than they do, but those who worship this myth become careless. They stop protecting themselves. They ignore threats. They neglect strategy. Why? Because they believe no one would dare to move against them. That is when betrayal strikes deepest. Psychology reveals the same pattern. The human ego craves specialness. It thrives on the belief that one's role cannot be duplicated. But the truth is harsher. Systems adapt. People adjust. Gaps are filled, and once replaced, the irreplaceable fades into memory, then into nothing. So what does the wise man do? He abandons the illusion. He knows he is not irreplaceable. He knows the world moves on, and because he knows this, he acts differently. He does not cling to legacy. He does not rest on reputation. He does not rely on loyalty. Instead, he keeps himself sharp, necessary in the present, not in fantasy. Think of a skilled strategist. He never assumes his soldiers will follow him blindly forever. He earns their obedience through fear, reward, and calculation. He does not believe they cannot betray him. He prepares for the moment they will. This makes him harder to overthrow, not easier. His strength comes not from believing he is irreplaceable, but from knowing he is not. Now consider the opposite. Napoleon believed his empire could not survive without him. He mistook his own brilliance for permanence. But when he was exiled, France endured. Others filled the vacuum. His illusion blinded him, and his fall became inevitable. Do you see the danger now? To believe you cannot be replaced is to stop watching your flank. To believe you are eternal is to invite the knife. Better to embrace the truth. You can be replaced. And once you accept this, you gain freedom. You no longer depend on recognition to feel secure. You no longer cling to illusions of loyalty. You no longer expect permanence. Instead, you focus on survival, strategy, and adaptability, the only true defenses against oblivion. In personal matters, this mindset transforms you. If you believe you can be replaced, you do not beg for validation. You do not cling desperately to those who would discard you. You know that every connection is conditional, every relationship fragile. This knowledge hardens you, it makes you independent, it makes you dangerous. So I ask you, do you wish to be comforted by the lie of irreplaceability or empowered by the truth of disposability? Will you live as one who clings to illusions, or as one who sharpens himself against reality? The wise man understands to be irreplaceable is impossible, but to make replacement costly, so costly that others hesitate, that is true strength. You cannot prevent succession, but you can make succession painful. That is how you endure. Never forget the world forgets quickly. Monuments crumble, names fade, faces are replaced. The only permanence is power exercised in the moment. Anything else is fantasy. And yet there is a darker question. If legacy is a trap and irreplaceability is a lie, then what is left? The answer is disappearance itself, the art of vanishing deliberately, only to return with greater force. Power is not taken with noise, it is taken in silence. The most effective chains are those a man never feels. The most perfect control is that which he believes to be his own choice. To dominate openly is to invite resistance. To dominate unseen is to leave no enemy, for none realize they are being ruled. This is the highest form of power, not to command, but to shape the very air men breathe. So they act in your favor while thinking it is their will. Ask yourself, how often have you been guided without knowing? How often have you mistaken manipulation for freedom? Now ask, how often have you done the same to others? If these truths disturb you, they are working. If they empower you, they are yours to use. Leave your reflections below. I want to read your mind as you attempt to guard it. Subscribe if you dare, for more strategies forged in the shadows. And share this lesson, so others may unknowingly fall under its spell.